In this video, we're going to go over the layout of the menus. Going through the menus, you'll notice a lot of the things that you'll need to access while on set are right here on the top. Starting in the top left, you'll see the frames per second. You can go and choose whichever frame rate you want here. These will change depending on what resolution you're shooting at. In 4.5K, you can go all the way up to 120 frames per second. Moving to the right, you have the ISO. The native ISO of these cameras is 800. But again, just like the frames per second, you can just scrub through and select whichever ISO you want. Same thing with the aperture setting. So you can select that here. Some lenses, you may be able to change the f-stop on the lens itself, but with our EF lenses, you can change it from the screen here. Next is the shutter angle or shutter speed. If you go into advanced, you can select this as a shutter angle or speed. So next over is the white balance. It works the same way. You just select and scrub through to select whichever color temperature you need. So next over is resolution, and within each resolution, you have a few options. For example, if you're shooting in 4.5K, there's also a 4.5K widescreen, and if I select that, you'll see it gets a bit tighter. So if we go into 2K, you'll see it gets much tighter because it's actually using the full 4.5K sensor and then cropping in to get the 2K resolution. So next over is the red code or compression type. Settings are specified as file size ratios compared to an equivalent uncompressed data stream, with higher ratios denoting more compression. Deciding which compression ratio to use really depends on the project. Just below 3:1 is mathematically lossless, but settings in the range of 5:1 to 8:1 are typically visually lossless and advisable for most usage scenarios. The compression ratio greatly changes your file size, so be aware of that. Next over is the main menu. We'll go into this more later, but basically this is where you can set up some of your project settings. Moving down to the bottom here, you can toggle between record and playback. In playback, you can look through your clips, name them, and stuff like that. You can also change some of the other settings, like ISO here, if you're recording in RAW. Next over, we have an RGB histogram. This is really useful for figuring out your exposure. As you can see on the side here, if we go too dark, we will see the goalposts filling up with red. That would mean we were losing data on the shadow end. And it would do the same thing on the highlight end if the goalposts on the other side would start to come up showing red. Next over, you have information about the camera setting and what's going on if you're shooting in HDRX or things like that. Then we have the SSD. You can go in here to format the card, eject it, and also find out information about how much recording time you have left. Next over, you'll see information about the battery life and voltage. To the right of that, you'll see the audio levels. The built-in audio recording capability is very limited in these cameras, so you will likely be recording audio separately with a Roland, MixPre, or Sound Devices recorder, and using the built-in system for reference tracks only. Now we're going to go back to the main menu. In the settings, you can set up your display, your look, dial in project settings, customize buttons, set up your black balance, and things like that. Going into the monitoring menu, this is where you would set up for external monitors and send LUTs to your various monitors. A lot of the functions that you would find in the main menu, you can access directly on screen. Take the time to familiarize yourself with the camera and the menus before taking it out onto set.